Remember we brought up about the Ark of the Covenant? We said about the two cherubim was on the mercy seat, the two witnesses. Because we've also said that, interesting, that the Hebrew letters also point, there's 22 letters, and they point to 22 different constellations in the heavens. And this one, the Shin, points to Canis Major. And here's you can see the constellation here, and it kind of looks like a big dog. There's actually two dogs up there. There's a Canis Major and Canis Minor. And they're actually referred to as the two witnesses up there in heaven. But here, the brightest star within the constellation Canis Major is located in the head of the dog, and his name is Sirius, which means the prince. Ovid and Virgil both referred to Sirius as Anubis. Anubis was an Egyptian guardian of the visible horizon and the solstices. In appearance, Anubis is said to have been the head of a jackal, which is where they get the idea of a dog. The picture of the dog is not really there, right? It's just the meaning of the stars. This Anubis was the same god, now this is from Egyptian mythology, whose special or particular responsibility was that of a transportation of the souls of the dead, both righteous and wicked, to the halls of judgment. What have we been talking about? In this chapter, we've been talking about the heavenly city and also what happens for the judgment, right? You don't get in the city until you pass through the judgment. Within the Akkadian constellation, the brightest star is called Casista, which means the leader. Throughout the sacred books of Persia, the star is praised as Tistria, which means the chieftain of the east. The star in his left forefoot is likewise named Mizraim, or Merzum, which means the prince or the ruler. The name is derived from the Arabic al-Merzum, which means the announcer. You'll see here's a picture of how they sit amongst the other constellations. Here's the big dog, Canis Major, and there's the little dog, Canis Major, and you see that they're part of the constellation Cancer. Did you remember when we talked about Cancer, what Cancer represented? Well, let's go ahead and read it here. The brightest star within the constellation Canis Major was named Procon, which means the Redeemer. So the little dog speaks of the Redeemer. Canis Major speaks of the Prince. Jesus is both the Prince and the Redeemer, isn't he? In both. But remember the idea of the two witnesses, and on that ark, Cancer represents a certain state of perfected being, the completion of the journey from darkness to light, or the journey from death to the resurrection of new life, the promise of a fortress of refuge for the people of God and an eternity of peace and safety. Where are we going? What is this chapter talking about? It's emphasizing the New Jerusalem. That is the end of our journey. That's eternity. We spend eternity, and that's what that constellation represented. And these two stand at the door, and it's interesting that they stand at the door at the place of eternal rest, but people have to be transferred to that city, right? Look at behind them is a ship, and this ship has always been understood to mean that the souls will be transported to heaven, into that paradise of God. That's what it represented. Argo represent the transporting of souls to heaven as a solar vehicle, transporting these souls to the heavenly place of safety and protection. Remember, we said that the people in the heavenly city in New Jerusalem, they will not only be in the New Jerusalem, but when the new earth is created, they're going to go wherever that new earth is. We don't know if it'll be in the same solar system, but whoever's in that city is going to be transported over there, right? And here's the way they really should be represented, because they're not really dogs. One, it represents the prince sitting on the throne, and the other represents the Redeemer. And remember, the Jews they believed they had two Messiahs. They remembered there was a Redeemer, and they taught there was a Redeemer. He was one of the Messiahs, and a prince. that would come, that would sit upon the throne. Well, we know that there's not two Messiahs, there's one. He comes first as a Redeemer. He comes second as the one who sits upon the throne. That's what we see in the heavens here. See, the pictures are kind of, they got him fouled up, meaning dogs, because of that whole idea of Anubis being like a head of a jackal. But you have the two witnesses standing, guarding, just like those angels guarded the entrance into the city. They're guarding the way into the city and also responsible for the transportation of those who will be included in the New Jerusalem. And isn't that what Jesus does as Redeemer and Prince? He is the one who will transport you to your eventual place of eternal security.